Hi there, Professor. My name is Abdullahi Mohammed. I hope you are having a wonderful evening. So, as me, I'm doing with today's video presentation, and my event was a visit to a museum. Yeah, my event was a visit to a historical museum known as here in Mocha, but now known as Windsor Community Museum. The museum is located at the center of Windsor, downtown, near um, the bus terminal station. I attended the museum way back like a month plus. I attended the museum on March 6, 2025. I chose to visit here Mocha Museum in Windsor because it holds important Canadian history, including the stories about the War of 1812, which was a very fascinating war to learn about for real. And the Detroit frontier. The museum highlights how Windsor Temple Sandwich played a key role in the war, including the battle like the Siege of Detroit, where the British, led by General Isaac Brock, and the British, led by General Isaac Brock, and the indigenous allies, led by Chief Tecumseh, successfully captured Fort Detroit from Americans. It was a very fascinating war. This was a snap from the. It was on the door of the museum. The name of the museum, the Hiramoka Historical Museum. When I arrived at Windsor Community Museum on March 6, 2025, I was excited to learn more about the history of Windsor and its role in important events like the Battle of Detroit. The museum was in a beautiful old brick building, and when I stepped inside, I felt like I traveled back in time. The first thing, well, it was like I went back in time, flashbacks. I felt like a soldier. I felt like I traveled back in time. The first thing that caught my eye was the large collection of historical artifacts. They were all maps, uniforms, and weapons used in the battle from long way ago. One of the most exciting parts for there was seeing lots of different weapons on display. I also took some snaps. These are the weapons on display. A lot of weapons on display. A lot of muskets. A lot of old maps. There were musket swords and even a massive cannon that stood in the center of the room, which I also took a snap. That was where it took my whole mind. I, al- I, I was also amazed by how big and powerful it looked, and I could only imagine what it must have been like to fire one in a battle. A guide, yeah, we also got help from a guide who explained everything from the war and explained everything how like which weapons were used, which muskets were used, like all of the muskets on the display were used, and all the maps, everything. He explained the Battle of Detroit, which took place during 1812. He also told us how British indigenous forces led by Major General Isaac Brock and Shawnee leader Tecumseh, who was leading the indigenous allies, worked together to trick the American troops into surrendering without a fight. It was fascinating to learn how strategy and leadership played such a big role in battle outcome. It was a mind war. Yeah, very fun war. Yeah, this is a snap from the uh, where I stood beside the cannon. Yeah, it was a big cannon. This is a snap. Chief Tecumseh, General Isaac Brock's picture. As I walked through the museum, I saw more displays of artifacts from the war, including letters written by soldiers and maps showing battle plans. Seeing these objects up close and learning about the history behind them made me appreciate how important Windsor was in shaping Canada's past. True. The visit was both fun and educational. I left with a better understanding of the battle that took place right where I was standing. As As I was in the museum, I didn't experience a least favorite part. I was enjoying every minute in the museum. I spent almost like 2 hours in the museum. It was a wonderful memory. I hope to go back as soon as possible. I think before the semester ends. I hope so. These are these are some snaps, and I had the old documents, posters on the walls. This poster was saying the Battle of Windsor. It explained how the soldiers were planning everything, how the battle was and the strategies. It was talking about the strategies and everything else. And this other poster was talking about the French and the slavery, how the French and this other one was talking about how French came to Windsor. There were so many snaps too, and there were so many documents on the wall too. Uh, why this matters to Canada, the war and the museum, everything. This battle helped decide whether Windsor and Detroit will be a Canadian or American, and seeing the actual weapons and stories made me understand how close we came to having a completely different history. The museum, the museum keeps these important memories alive, so we never forget how Canada was defended. That's true. What surprised me? I was surprised to see artifacts from the Battle of Windsor, like real weapons, uniforms, all documents, like the cannon. It really, really surprised me. I've never seen like a cannon in my life. I took so many pictures. I have so many pictures in my phone. I felt like stepping into history. I didn't expect to see so many well-preserved items from that time. It's almost so many years, almost like 200 years. Like, and the weapons are very, very preserved. That's good. What I was curious about, yeah, I wondered how these artifacts survived so long. Yeah, I was curious about that too. And who used them? I know that the soldiers used them, but who specifically used them, like names, if I could get that, it would be very, very fascinating to learn more about that. What was the Battle of Windsor really like? How was it like to see to witness it? I would I would really I would really like to witness it. I was curious about those questions. The museum had description, but still had so many questions to ask the guide. How was this event different than what I've experienced at home or before? In Kenya, museums often highlight African heritage, colonial history, and independence movement, while this museum focused on North American history, particularly the Battle of Windsor in Kenya. And like, it's very hard to see. For me, I think I only visited one museum and in Kenya all my life. And that museum, I don't think it's the biggest one, but it was only like talking about the African heritage. It had like some musical artifacts and some dresses, something like that. But it didn't had like war thing, like the things that I learned from Hiram Walker Museum. It was most talking about the African heritage, the musical artifacts, something like that. But I've never seen like weapons like that well preserved in a museum. It was like my first time to witness something like that. Attending the Hiram Walker Museum in Windsor, Ontario gave me a deep understanding of the War of 1812, particularly the Detroit War. I would definitely attend a similar event just because it helped me learn about key moments in Canadian and American history. For sure, the visit changed my perception of Canada and Canadians by showing how the War of 1812 and the Battle of Detroit played a significant role in shaping the region's future. The Detroit War, where British and Canadian forces alongside with the Indigenous allies led by Chief Tecumseh successfully defended against American forces, is a proud moment in Canadian history for sure. It helped shape Canada's borders and identity. I also learned that Canadians are deeply proud for the history, especially in how they defend their land during this time. The museum did an excellent job for sharing these important historical moments, and with the help of the guide, for sure, it was very fun trip. For real, it was fun trip. I think we come into conclusion. This is the video I uploaded and on the last PowerPoint presentation page, the 1 minute video. Yeah, that's it. I hope the presentation went good and I'll be uploading as soon as possible. Okay. Have a good day. Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.